Hi, thank you very much. My name's Slade, and I've just got my healing company called Healing Ray, all one word. And I thought I'd start off with probably telling you how I managed to get into quantum psionics, because it's all about synchronization and synchronicity. So I'm third generation psychic within my family, so that means I'm clairsentient, I'm clairaudience, and I'm clairvoyant. And basically it means I see, sense, and am able to communicate with spirit. And it's strange because in my childhood, I wasn't really aware of having this. I knew that my mum did and that my nan did, but I wasn't really aware of connecting to it myself. And it was odd, because I was thinking about tonight, looking at what my journey's been, and I think one of the things that stood out for me is that I never actually felt that I fitted in any time during my childhood. And I didn't connect to spirit, and I didn't feel a drawing to it. And that carried on until I was much later in life, and I started working. I met my amazing husband, who supports me 110%, and we started our family. Yeah. And we started our family, but I always knew that there was something, it was like a scratch that I couldn't itch, and it was a missing part of me that I just couldn't connect with. And the first relevant part of synchronicity happened to me when our children were very small. And I came into contact through work, a couple who were sort of spiritual advisors, and they had a group, and they were offering Reiki training. And all of a sudden, it was like a light bulb moment. I needed to do this. And I went off and I did my Reiki 1, my Reiki 2, my Reiki Master. And then I moved on to doing tarot and intuitive tarot and learning mediumship. And I finally felt that something had connected for me, something was resonating with me, and I was actually doing something that I was so passionate about. And actually was really good at, which surprised me because I'd gone through a whole childhood of not really feeling I was good at anything. And then life gets in the way, so we had our children, we moved into a house that needed renovating, and because of my low self-esteem, and because I had struggled with depression through most of my life, I felt in order to validate myself, in order for me to feel good, I needed to climb that career ladder, because I thought, actually, if I got as far as I could get, and I earned as much money as I could, that would mean that I'm a good person, and I'll be fulfilling something in me. And there's lots of people nodding their heads. And the thing is, it's not until you try and do that, you realise that actually that's the last thing that you need to do, because the bigger the job I got, with the bigger spans of control and the more board meetings I sat on and the bigger car I got, and when I got my own car parking space, at one point I just thought I had come home. But it still wasn't right, it still didn't feel right. I never connected with the people that I worked with, I didn't connect with the ethos, and I never felt I was working with someone from my tribe. But I carried on, because at that point you're locked into it. And I was still working spiritually, I was still doing my tarot, which I am passionate about, and I was still doing my Reiki healing, which once again I'm passionate about. And life was carrying on, and then very suddenly someone very close in our immediate family became really ill. And my husband and I made a heartbeat decision that I would leave my career and I would spend my time making sure that that person carried on living, and that I was there to support them. And that's what I've done for the last 8 years. I've taken on the mental health service, I have fought from being in the boardroom, I've taken on everyone that didn't give us the service and the treatment that we needed for our special person. And that was my crusade. And I went with it and I fought passionately for it. But once again, I'd still lost myself, because I was still doing a little bit of healing, a little bit of tarot and connecting spiritually. But that sort of went to the background. And then in October, we had a cataclysmic event in our family. And it's really odd, because a lot of people I've come into contact with had really struggled last year, and I don't know how many people here had a really tough last year. And there was a lot of things that came up that we needed to deal with. And one of those things was because we're moving out of the age of out of the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And in order to do that, and in order to get into the new vibration of Aquarius, we needed to look at and manage some of that shadow side that we have. So October came, this event happened, and it took me to the worst place possible, to a place where actually I wasn't even sure if I wanted to carry on. But looking back, I understand that had to happen. That moment had to happen because I needed to clear space for me to do what I needed to do in terms of my soul contract. And that's when the second event, the synchronicity, happened that was so important for me. On Facebook, there was an invitation to an afternoon of art and meditation. I love it. I'm not any good at art, but you know what, I'll give everything a go. So I signed up, went along to this most beautiful place in the most beautiful gardens, and as I walked in the door waiting to see everyone, I was the only person that turned up. I was the only person there. But that was for an absolute reason. Because the lady who was actually taking that course then had time to sit and talk with me, because I was pretty broken then and didn't really know what needed to happen. And she said to me, I believe I can help you. I've just trained in this new healing modality called Quantum Psionics Healing, of which went over my head like this. I had no idea what she was talking about, but you know what? I was so rock bottom, I would have given anything a try. So we arranged for me to go and see her, and she started working. And I had the most amazing experience of knowing something but not knowing it. It's so different from anything that I'm used to, anything to do with hands-on healing. We worked from a board, we worked from a pendulum. It just blew my mind, and we were doing things that I suddenly understood on a really deep subconscious level. I understood what she was talking about in terms of quantum science. Anyone who knows me, I can't even do a fraction. My maths is horrendous, and yet I now have this knowledge and passion for something that I didn't even know that I knew about. So I thought, okay, I said to my husband, love him, I need to go off and do that. He's like, yep, that's fine. So I got in touch with the lady who trains it, and actually she lives over in Portugal, because Quantum Psionics was actually channeled by a Brazilian lady. And Raquel then learned how to train it. I got in touch with her and she said, you know what, you've missed the boat. I was over in September, I'm not coming back over to England to do any more until the new year. And I said to her, but I need to know this. I honestly, at a soul level, need to connect with this. And after we've spoken, you know, after the event, she said to me, do you know what, Tina? She said, I've never done this for anyone. She said, but she opened up her home to me. She invited me over to Portugal, over to Cascais, and she trained me within her home. She said, I've never done that before, but I knew I had to do it. So off I went to Portugal, I learnt quantum, and brought it back to the UK, and it's very new. There's only probably about 20 people, practitioners, who are trained in the quantum healing. And why it's so different is because we work from a board. And this is what we call the blue board. And in fact, there's another board which is called the crystalline grid. If I talk loudly, then hopefully you can still hear me. This board has been channeled, and it's channeled through sacred geometry and through quantum. So in quantum healing, what we can do is we actually go back to the very source of the things which are holding you back and your blockages. Because we're all reincarnated, and because we are actually spiritual beings living in the physical body, the blockages that we experience mostly come from past life experiences. So we can have things like, I don't know, we can have things where we've got 7 levels of karmic debt. We have things where we have contracts, soul contracts from different lives. We have just the experiences that we've had from different lives that aren't healed when we come back and reincarnate into this life. What we're able to do through quantum healing is we're able to go back to the source. We're able to connect to what we call your Akashic records. And your Akashic records are pretty much like the hard drive in our mind that holds all of the thoughts, feelings, and experiences and trauma that we've had in past life. And through the quantum board, we're actually able to either go back in time, so we can quantum leap into the past to put into divine order anything that happened in that time that you've brought into this life. And most of the time that's subconsciously, because what we're doing is we're connecting you to your highest self. We're connecting you to your source, to your true source. And that allows you also to understand, what was my soul contract? What is it I'm meant to be doing in this lifetime that perhaps I'm not able to do because these blockages are coming in? So what is it perhaps we don't create abundance for ourselves? We might have issues with finances. We might have issues with relationships where we repeat the same unhealthy relationship patterns. And we're able to actually go back to the point of origin and clear that through dowsing and using quantum waves and going, and then I get a bit off the scale here, going multi-dimensional through these layers and actually going to the source of these blockages and clearing them out for you. And we do it through several great ways. In fact, I'm really sorry I've got it upside down. I'm sorry, you should have shouted. You're welcome to. So, as I say, sacred geometry. So actually, encoded in here, we have sacred geometry. We also work with flower remedies. We can work with the crystal world. We can work with Reiki symbols. We can work with Geoborgi, Arcadian codes. So we can use all of those to work on not only your physical, your mental, but your spiritual problems that allow you to actually release that and to get back in tune with what your soul contract is, because most of the time we don't know. And the reason why I'm so passionate is because after I had my training, I then every day worked on this because I was a pretty broken person. I'd crusaded for everyone. I was a people pleaser. And when you're a people pleaser, you just never have any time to develop yourself. And I worked on all those painful places, all those shadow sides that I didn't really know were there. And I've cleared them. So I've gone through a lot of family karma. A lot of us have problems with family. And that's due to past events that, unless we learn our lesson in that life, we come back and learn that lesson in this life. And your husband might actually be your wife in your next life, and your mother might be your father. But you know what? You will come back and learn that lesson until you get to a point where you can connect with your higher self. And that involves letting go and being connected to your higher conscious level and moving off into the fifth dimension, because we all live very much in the third dimension at the moment. And that's all about duality. It's all about light and dark, love and hate. It's all about, you know, the real rough stuff. And the consciousness of the earth is moving, so that we're moving into a fifth dimension where we're more about care and concern. We're about our higher self, connecting with others. It's about loving each other and loving the planet that we're living on.
Just a couple of minutes.
So basically, we're able to do all of this by just connecting, looking at your vibration, working out what's right for you in terms of your soul contract, and allowing you to be the person that you're meant to be.